In 2024 at school, Nikolai is suddenly pushed against the wall by Victor, who wants him to delete the message he wrote on the classroom blackboard. It turns out that Anastasia was with Nikolai for a week, but she cheated on him with Victor, so Nikolai wrote all this on the board to call her out. When he refuses to delete the message, Victor starts beating him up and dragging him through the hallway. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, an alien courier spaceship suddenly appears. The pilot has made it to this solar system by mistake and gets fired for it. While changing radio channels on his control panel, he accidentally picks up a signal from Nikolai's best friend Fima, who is currently playing video games. The pilot talks to him and Fima immediately becomes famous as the first person that made contact with aliens. Thanks to this, Earth joins the Star Federation and a new era in history begins. Technology advances at amazing speed and humans now have access to things like organs grown in labs. Earth also becomes a touristic attraction for beings from all corners of the universe. Things take a nasty turn in 2110 when a war begins just because someone shoots a person on the border of the Star Federation. The Pirate Alliance are the bad guys and their leader Glot has psychokinetic powers plus the ability to travel through time. Whenever the pirates lose a battle, Glot travels back in time and gives his army information about the enemy's tactics so they win instead. Earth decides to send a special purpose unit into the heart of the pirates' lair and Kira gets to fight Glot hand to hand. She manages to defeat him, but she also dies in the process. Kira has a daughter named Alice, who goes to the same school as Nikolai 100 years in the future. After class, she goes to the forest with her father's robot Werder to practice combat with a training hologram. She's wearing special gauntlets that allow her to interact with the simulation and block the attacks from the simulated pirates. It's clear she's very talented and manages to keep up the fight for a while, but it's still too much for her and in the end she's defeated. Refusing to give up, Alice asks Werder to run the simulation again. She's so concentrated on fighting efficiently that she doesn't notice her father Igor appearing behind her and punches his nose. Later at home, Alice takes care of Igor's injury while he scolds her for not paying more attention in class. He also asks about the gauntlets, so Alice explains they were sent by the cadet school and that they're willing to consider her. Igor immediately disapproves of this idea, but Alice insists she wants to study there, saying that she wants to search for her mother. The body was never found, and since the pirates mess with time, Alice thinks her mother may have been sent to the past. When Igor points out that if Kira was in the past she would have sent a message, Alice takes him to a tree with a heart drawing on its trunk. Some time ago she made Werder run an analysis and they discovered that the drawing is 100 years old, so she believes it's a message from her mom. Igor thinks she's reading too much into it, so a frustrated Kira runs to hide in her room. Werder quickly scans her and notices she's on the verge of depression, but she ignores the comment and asks him to run the recognition software again. Alice thinks that by searching among pictures from the past she can find someone that looks like her mom, but they've done this thousands of times to no avail. Today Alice's attention falls on a woman named Margarita, who worked as a teacher in 2024. In the present, Anastasia continues to record Victor beating up Nikolai. The fight moves to the classroom, where they're interrupted by the physics teacher Margarita. Later that day, Nikolai's mother is called to the principal's office to discuss his behavior. She takes her son's electronics and forces him to clean the message. Fima keeps Nikolai company while he tries to clean, but he used paint for the message, so he needs something stronger than a cloth. Nikolai then breaks into the locked lab and searches the shelves, only to notice that things fall as if they were attracted by a magnet. The water in one of those objects trembles near a picture on the wall, so Nikolai moves it and finds a hidden compartment. Inside this compartment there's a very heavy box that makes Nikolai's nose bleed. When a drop of blood lands on the box it starts glowing, so Nikolai opens it to find a small ball of energy. The ball jumps into his palm and enters his body, causing him to get dizzy and shake as if he was having a seizure. While Fima runs to find the nurse, Nikolai hears a voice saying Cosmian is back in the system. As he runs downstairs and through the corridors, more voices can be heard saying things like "you will die quickly" and mentioning Nikolai's and Alice's names. Suddenly the corridor and all objects in it begin getting distorted and Nikolai is teleported outside. Still dizzy, he tries asking a person for help only to be horrified by their weird helmet. Then he bumps into Alice, who thinks she's being attacked and throws him on the ground. The pain allows Nikolai to see clearly again while Alice helps him up with an apology. He asks for an ambulance and explains he doesn't have his phone, which makes Alice suspicious. She takes a close look at his clothes and his student ID to realize he comes from the past. Alice tells Nikolai to look around and he finally notices all the advanced technology around them while she points out this is the year 2124. An overwhelmed Nikolai passes out. Meanwhile, in the titanium isolation prison, a pirate named Jolly knocks down guards until he finds the cell holding Glot. Jolly explains he was elected the new leader of what's left of the Pirate Alliance, but he can't take over the position while the previous captain's still alive. When he gets his gun ready, Glot finally turns around and informs him that Cosmian is coming and it could help them win the war, so Glot and Jolly agree to cooperate. They make a special pact by shaking hands with a coin between them that marks their skin. Then Jolly shoots his gun but can't hurt Glot, which means the pact works. He opens the cell and releases Glot from his bindings before two guards come in. Glot uses his power to control the guard and make him shoot his partner before forcing him to self-delete. Back to Nikolai. He wakes up in Alice's home and freaks out when he notices Werther scanning him. Alice sends the robot away before giving Nikolai a tour of the place. She tells him about many technological advances like flying cars and having solved climate change. When Igor arrives and meets Nikolai, he takes him to his lab to take a sample from his body. They find a piece of exotic matter inside him, which may be Cosmian. Igor immediately freaks out and asks Nikolai where he found it, saying it should belong to Kira. When Nikolai mentions a teacher's lab, Alice makes the connection to Margarita and demands an explanation. Igor gives Alice a letter that Kira left for her family. Cosmian was the thing that allowed Glot to travel through time, and Kira stole it during the final battle. She went to 2014 to hide it and changed her identity to Margarita to stay there. She often wished she could go back to her loved ones, but it was her duty to protect Cosmian to save humanity, so she hoped her husband and daughter one day would forgive her for abandoning them. Alice is angry that her father has lied to her all her life and runs away. Igor tries to follow her, but Nikolai asks him to let him handle the situation. After the teens are gone, Igor receives a letter on paper, which is rare in the future. It says to open exactly at 10 p.m., so Igor does so. Outside, Nikolai searches for Alice with the help of Werther, who explains Nikolai should never meet his future self or he'd create a temporal interference. Werther moves ahead, but Nikolai is suddenly blocked by Jolly and Glot, who forces Nikolai to fall on his knees. When Werther sees them, Jolly tries to shoot it, but the robot dodges the attack and flies up to trigger the invasion alert. All lights in the area turn red and a mysterious circle appears in the sky. Jolly gets ready to kill Nikolai to extract Cosmian, but is interrupted by an attack from Alice, who Jolly quickly pushes off. Then Alice and Jolly start fighting, and thanks to her gauntlets, she manages to defend herself pretty well. Jolly gets his blade stuck in a tree and Alice gets to steal his gun. Glot lets go of Nikolai to control Alice instead, and Jolly kicks her to disarm her before punching her. At that moment, Igor also arrives and says the authorities are coming. Nikolai grabs the gun and Glot immediately controls him, forcing him to shoot Igor. As Alice desperately runs to her father, Cosmian suddenly activates inside Nikolai and sends the group to the past. A car almost runs over Jolly, who uses his blade to destroy it. Another car is approaching Glot, who controls the driver to send the vehicle off the road. Then Jolly throws his blade at Nikolai, getting his jacket stuck in a car. Alice immediately frees him and the teens run away while the car owner tries to confront Jolly. The guy gets kicked off and crushed by a broken car door. Next, Jolly begins jumping from car to chase after the teens. He manages to corner them and stabs Alice, only to discover it's a hologram made by Werther. After furiously cutting the robot in two, Jolly checks on Glot, who is staring at the circle in the sky. When Jolly gets too annoying, Glot controls a bike driver to make him run over Jolly. The pirate only laughs and notices that Nikolai left his jacket behind with his student ID. Afterward, Nikolai takes Alice to Fima's apartment because his parents are out of town. Alice shows off her gauntlets to make Fima believe the story, but he still doesn't let them stay because he has to practice for his video game tournament tomorrow. Nikolai takes Alice to his own home instead and makes up a story for his mother about the new girl being lost in town. In his room, he shows Alice the rap song he wrote. He also tries to kiss her, but she turns him down. Meanwhile, Jolly keeps stopping cars in the street to ask them how to get to Nikolai's school. A taxi driver thinks he wants a ride and tells him to get in. The man puts the address in his GPS app and asks for payment in advance, so Jolly threatens him with his blade. The driver runs away in fear and Jolly takes over the wheel, touching things until the car moves in reverse and crashes. He then takes the phone and follows the instructions on the GPS on foot. Soon the incident appears in the news, including footage of Jolly taken by people with their phones. Kira sees it on TV and immediately looks for her old equipment. The next morning, Nikolai takes Alice to his school and they're stopped by Victor and Anastasia, who is angry to see that her ex already has a new girl. While Anastasia rants at Alice, Nikolai sees Kira and runs after her to tell her about Cosmian and her daughter. Suddenly, Jolly appears and throws the receptionist on the desk before destroying the turnstile. Anastasia notices the gauntlet glowing on Alice's arm as she makes her and Victor hide. While Jolly recognizes Kira, the receptionist activates the fire alarm and most of the students run away. Then Kira starts fighting Jolly, also using gauntlets and proving she's as amazing as the stories say. Jolly is a very skillful opponent though, so Alice rushes to join the fight and help her mother. After sharing a heartfelt look, the women begin fighting Jolly together, but he's still too strong. He manages to throw Kira through a door and smash Alice's head on a window. Then Kira attacks Jolly with the broken door, keeping him distracted while Alice guides the remaining teens out. Kira continues to fight Jolly and causes enough damage to knock him down, which creates an opening for her to run to. The teens and Kira hide in her classroom, where they move a bunch of desks to block the door. Jolly breaks the window but can't get in, so he starts cutting the wall with his blade until he creates a hole big enough to come in. Kira starts fighting Jolly again while trying to convince him that Glot is only using him to get Cosmian and will discard him later. Nikolai is trying to concentrate to activate Cosmian but keeps getting distracted, so Alice kisses him to help him focus. Cosmian finally starts working and the group is surrounded by its energy, so Kira kicks Jolly back through the hole. The group quickly disappears while leaving their enemy behind. In the future, the group appears in a wrecked building. When they look out, they discover the future isn't beautiful anymore. It's post-apocalyptic. At that moment, a robot enters the room and Kira attacks it to destroy its mask, revealing Werder underneath. He guides them through the building while explaining what happened. Glot controlled Fima to make him go to school instead of playing the tournament, so he never received the alien signal and Earth didn't join the Star Federation. Glot used Fima's computer to talk to the alien and cause the Pirate Alliance to arrive on Earth first. This allowed the pirates to set up an excellent defensive outpost and humans became nothing but workers for them. Werder takes the group to an apartment where they find Jolly, who has lost a hand and replaced it with a mechanical prosthetic. Jolly explains he saved Werder and that he only wants to talk, offering food as proof. He reveals that Glot betrayed him just like Kira predicted, so now he wants revenge, but he can't hurt Glot because of the pact. When he mentions Cosmian, Kira immediately attacks him, but Jolly swears he doesn't want it for himself, he only wants freedom. Kira agrees to let him guide them to Glot in exchange for amnesty later. Afterward, Jolly shares his plan. He thinks they should stop Glot in the past, so they have an hour to get to the point where Nikolai creates the time rift. Nikolai points out he could just use his power now, but Jolly explains that Glot can track Cosmian's gravitational waves, so they need to wait for a time gap. At that moment, a pirate robot appears at the window doing the monthly check on the owner of the apartment. Jolly opens the fridge where he keeps a collection of human limbs and exchanges his prosthetic for a real hand. Then he shows it to the robot, who scans it to get what it wants and leaves. While Jolly shows Kira his collection of weapons, Nikolai joins Alice on the roof and asks her on a date for when this is over. When Alice says yes, they share a kiss. The moment is interrupted by Kira, who wants to discuss more details about the plan. The teens end up telling her about Igor's death and hope they can reverse it when they defeat Glot in the past, but Jolly reveals everything will be happening after the incident, so they can't bring him back. Jolly leaves with Kira and Nikolai, while Alice stays in the apartment to protect Fima, Anastasia, and Victor. Fima begins thinking about Glot and how he should know everything in advance, so if they're here in the future with no consequences, it means it's a trap. They realize Glot needs Jolly to fight other pirates who can actually kill him, and once Jolly is out of the picture, Glot can come in to steal Cosmian. Alice is worried about Nikolai and wants to help him, but Fima and Anastasia don't think they should do anything stupid. Victor gives a speech about wanting a better future to change their minds and grabs a grenade before they leave. The trap theory turns out to be true when the trio finds themselves surrounded by pirates on the street. Kira and Jolly immediately begin fighting them, which is hard to do while trying to protect Nikolai. The boy tries hiding inside a bus and the pirate comes after him, so Nikolai tries his best to dodge the attacks but gets captured anyway. Suddenly, Alice bursts through the window and fights the pirate, who overpowers her and tries to choke her. Nikolai grabs a metal bar and knocks the pirate out. When a new horde of enemies appears, Victor throws the grenade and instantly defeats them all. However, the explosion also brings down a building, so Nikolai runs and jumps just in time to save his friends. The four teens return to the past and Anastasia wants to kiss Nikolai for saving her, but he stops her. He tells Fima to go to his apartment to get the signal before jumping into the future again. Alice immediately takes him to a hiding place while Kira and Jolly continue to fight pirates. At this rate, they'll never be able to leave, so Jolly pushes Kira into a building and stays back as a distraction. There are too many enemies and Jolly is stabbed multiple times, but he never gives up and makes sure to defeat all the pirates before collapsing. Werder comes close to say goodbye to him before leaving. Then Glot shows up to watch Jolly die and the mark on his hand disappears. In the past, the teens run to the computer only to find Glot already there. He takes control of Fima and makes him punch Victor. Then he controls Victor to force him to tackle Anastasia. At the same time in the future, Nikolai's team makes it to the apartment and he activates Cosmian to use the time rift, interrupting Glot when he almost kills Fima. Kira tries to attack, but Glot uses Anastasia to stop her and forces Kira to punch the girl. Next, he controls Alice to make her knock down Nikolai, causing the time rift to close. Nikolai and Alice are left in the future with the other Glot, who forces Alice to choke Nikolai, while in the past Kira is attacking the other teens. Once Nikolai is finally dead, Glot retrieves Cosmian from his body. Alice rushes to do CPR and at first it does nothing, but using a shock from his gauntlet does the trick and brings Nikolai back to life. In the past, Glot gets ready to make Kira self-delete, but Fima grabs a prop of Thor's hammer and hits him in the head. Kira regains control of herself and manages to slash Glot's neck, causing the scar to appear in the future. Nikolai thinks this is a sign of them winning, but Glot is certain they'll lose and uses Cosmian to activate the time gap again so he can make the teens watch Kira self-delete. However, Nikolai pushes future Glot against past Glot, causing him to lose control and Kira only gets a minor injury. Because Glot has seen himself, a continuum failure has been triggered. The Glots begin multiplying and try to attack, but the time gap is cracking and Cosmian shoots out rays of energy until it destroys every copy of Glot in the room. The group thinks it's over, but Cosmian needs a host to be under control. It suddenly expels a wave of energy that covers the city and is hurting the people in the apartment. With lots of effort, Kira pushes through the energy beams to try to grab Cosmian. However, Nikolai reaches it first and absorbs it again. Before resetting the timeline, Nikolai apologizes to Alice for missing their date. Suddenly he appears floating in outer space under the big circle of energy, only to be sent back to Earth in a quick fall. Nikolai appears in his apartment in the present and sees his friends before passing out. Sometime later, Nikolai wakes up in the hospital surrounded by his mother and friends. Fima confirms he got the alien signal, so the timeline has been fixed. Nikolai says he doesn't have Cosmian anymore, which means he won't see Alice ever again. In the future, Alice, Kira, and Vera reunite with Igor in a city that has been restored. It turns out that the physical letter Igor got was sent by Nikolai, who warned him about what would happen. The Igor they saw die had actually been a hologram. The famous tree is planted by Nikolai and his friends, and the heart is drawn by Nikolai as a message for Alice in the future. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.